Hi, you're listening to Record of Change. My name is Kecheng Fang, and I am your host for this episode. Record of Change features the stories of individuals from across the world about how their lives have been shaped by the COVID-19 pandemic. We listen to our interviewees at several points of time because we want to follow their stories of how their lives are changing. I'm speaking to you in Hong Kong, where our guests, Wenni and Dominic, are also based. In the first 2 seasons, we already heard how this couple tried to immigrate from Hong Kong to Canada, but then the coronavirus hit them. They were hospitalized for many weeks. After recovering, Wenni quit her job as an insurance agent and rediscovered her passion in social work. This time, we talk about the Lunar New Year, the changed lifestyle, the political situation in Hong Kong, and the cat they recently adopted. You will hear the cat in the recording. Let's listen to them. Hello, Wenni and Dominic.
Hello.
Thanks for chatting with us for the third time. We recorded our very first episode in early August last year, which is already half a year ago. And then we talked again in October. Now it's already mid-February 2021. It's also during our Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year holiday. So first of all, Happy Lunar New Year to both of you.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
I wonder how was the Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year holiday? I guess it is very special, right? What did you do and did you enjoy it?
Chinese New Year is very long. It's normally spend like 10 days to celebrate. Yeah, so usually we spend half of the Chinese New Year in Hong Kong with Dominic's relatives. And then we fly back to my hometown, Wuxian, to finish the rest of the Chinese New Year. But this year, we can't go back due to the pandemic. It has been 1 year since I saw the last Chinese New Year.
Your parents?
Yes. So this year, basically, we just 2 of us and our cat spent the Chinese New Year in our home.
Not with Dominic's relatives?
We went to his grandma's home, but due to the pandemic, we can't have a long gathering. Just a brief gathering with relatives, and we can't have dinner together. So we just say some lucky words to each other, and then we go back to our home. So these days we basically go out for a walk and go back, have delivery food, watching Netflix. Yes, it's special, but it's kind of boring, I would say. Yes.
So it's a small family gathering instead of a big family gathering in previous years.
Yes, but Chinese New Year is about a big gathering, about family reunion. So it's just like a normal vacation. It's not so Chinese New Year.
But I guess you had video chat with your parents, right? That's the only way to meet them nowadays.
Yes, true.
So what about Dominic? Did you enjoy it?
Well, it's a very peaceful year, so we just try to keep it small and simplified.
I know Hong Kong people used to go out to other countries like Japan, Thailand for the holidays, right? So Dominic, do you or your family have this kind of habit of going to other countries to celebrate the Chinese New Year?
Yeah, it's very common that people do travel during long holidays, but due to the COVID, not everyone's staying in Hong Kong this year, and the street is very empty. So everyone's trying to stay at home and trying to stay safe.
Yeah, this is also my first time celebrating the Chinese New Year in Hong Kong. So I guess it's very different because the mainland Chinese, they cannot come to Hong Kong, right? So
Yeah.
So what do you think of the current COVID pandemic situation in Hong Kong? Maybe it's towards the end of the so-called fourth wave, right? Do you have any observations?
The recent wave, I think, is much more serious than the first 3 waves. Like most of days, we have over 100 people diagnosed with this disease. But I think people is quite familiar with it. So most of us are calm, and we are not very worried about going out. Like I still have work from home, but I need to go to office every other day. So the time I went out, there are still a lot of people in MTR, in the street, in the market. So I think people got well with life with this disease, I think.
So although the numbers might be higher than previous waves, people's sentiment is basically the same. People feel not so anxious.
Yes.
Is that also your observation, Dominic?
Yeah, recently the numbering has been dying down quite dramatically. So when we get like 20Ks, 15Ks a day, and with more implementations from the government, like the mandatory quarantine, so that has definitely helped. And there's a vaccine is coming along the way. So it seems that it's more under control now. It seems like we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel now.
I live at Jordan, right? It's very close to the Yomate area. So during this wave, this is one of the heavily influenced areas, right? There are many like ethnic minority groups living here, like people from Nepal, right? So my observation is that at each wave, different kinds of people got influenced. And for the most recent wave, one of the most influenced groups is actually not like local Hong Kong people, but those migrant workers from countries like Nepal. And they live in very like old and crowded small rooms. They cannot afford the city's very high rent. And also some of them have language problems. So maybe a few weeks ago, I saw the government is putting up announcements not only in English, not only in Chinese, but also in the language that Nepalese people use. So I think this also reflects one special aspect of the Hong Kong society, right? Hong Kong society is very diverse with different kind of population, also with a significant population from South and Southeast Asia. So
Yes, true.
do you have any observations on this?
I'm a social worker now. Due to the high rent, I also help my client to find the bed, the space, the sleeping space. And most of them are in Yangmate or Jordan also. It costs like 2,000 Hong Kong dollars 1 month, which was the only
a bed.
Yes, only a bed. But it is the only affordable living place for our clients. But you can imagine that many people, they sleep in a crowded area, in a small space. It is not good for the disease control. Yes.
Yeah. So for your clients, are they Hong Kong people or are they migrant workers?
They are local person.
Okay.
So not only the ethnic minority people, but many local people, they are suffering from high rent and they are living in the subdivided flat or some bed space. So it's really very common in Hong Kong nowadays.
So Dominic, you just mentioned the vaccine. Do you have more recent updates about vaccine? Because I do not receive any information about vaccine. Our university has not informed us about the vaccination. So do you have any?
It's quite odd because, our neighbor Macau, a lot of citizens are getting the vaccines already. And, you heard that in the Western countries, people are getting vaccinated. But it's still unclear, like there's no precise dates or how to progress with being vaccinated in Hong Kong. Like the government announced that everyone will get a vaccine, but when it's going to start, how it's going to happen, like nothing has been confirmed yet.
Do you think social workers will be among the first groups of people to get vaccinated?
No, definitely not. I think it's quite clear, actually, the government say that people at higher risk are going to get vaccinated first, which is fair, I think.
So for social workers, because you can work from home, so maybe not be among the first priorities.
Yeah, unless you work in an elderly center or an elderly home, then you might, because you don't want to get your clients to be infected.
And also some people have some concerns about safety of the vaccine. Did you hear any of that? Or do you have concerns about that?
Yes, I asked some of my friends, will you have the vaccine? But most of them say, yes, I will. But after most of the persons they have...
After others.
Yes, and they will see if there is any side effect. Yes, especially is the vaccine from mainland China. Most of people do not want the vaccine from mainland China.
I can hear your cat. So maybe a question about your cat. So did you decide to adopt a cat because of the pandemic, or you feel kind of lonely and you want some pet to accompany you, or because of other reasons?
I always want a cat, and one of my former colleagues from insurance company, they decided to move back to mainland China. And this cat used to belong to them. And I called her Trinity. Trinity was already 5 years old, but her former parents, they don't want to take her back to China. That's why I adopt her. It's a coincidence, but I think it's good for both of us. I mean, the cat and us, yes.
So people are working from home now, so people have more time to take care of their pets. So I guess globally there has been an increase in pets adopted, especially by working professionals. So next question is about travel, right? Hong Kong people were trapped on this island for over a year now. So last year there was a planned travel bubble with Singapore, but it got postponed due to the rise of the pandemic cases. So do you miss traveling, or what's the first place you want to go if we can travel again?
Yeah, definitely. I think I speak for the whole of Hong Kong. Like everyone misses traveling. We haven't really thought about that far yet, but definitely like everyone's getting fatigued, isolated at home, and we really wish a change of scenery, go to different places. So like, everyone's just eager to go out.
We usually went to travel like at least 1 or 2 times per year, but this year we can just stay in Hong Kong. If the pandemic is over, I will go back to my hometown Wuxi immediately because I miss my parents, I miss my friends, my relatives so much.
Yes. So what do you think of the people's mood among this latest wave of the pandemic? Because people are trapped, they cannot travel. Do you think this negatively influence people's psychological situation?
Yes, because I think traveling is really play a key part in Hong Kong people's life. Because, we live in such a small space and we work so long time. So not traveling is, I think, influence Hong Kong people more than people from other places.
So I think, but the lucky thing is that Hong Kong has many beautiful places to go, right? So people can still go hiking, right?
Yes, that's why we never hike before the pandemic. But these days we hike a lot and we found a lot of people hiking.
So a lot of mountains got very crowded, right?
Yes.
When you just mentioned you haven't been back for a year, actually I went back to mainland China twice. So once in June last year and once in December last year. So that is because I worked as a teacher at a university. So I have summer break and winter break. So this affords me to go back because I can have time to go through the quarantine. So for both of times, I went through Shenzhen Bay, and then I spent like 2 weeks in Shenzhen in June. And then in December, all the quarantine hotels in Shenzhen were already full. So we were transported to another city near Shenzhen, which is Dongguan. And then unfortunately, I was assigned to a hotel because you cannot select which hotel to stay, right? So I was assigned to a very bad hotel, crappy hotel, with very bad internet connection. So it was quite painful experience for me. I tested like almost 5 times during these 2 weeks. But after that 2 weeks, I managed to go back. I only spent 2 weeks freely moving in mainland China. And then I came back to Hong Kong because the new semester has started. So basically, I spent almost 1 month in quarantine just to have 2 weeks of free time moving in mainland and visit my family back in my hometown in Anhui province. So yes, it is painful. Maybe I'm not sure about this summer. I hope we can go freely by this summer, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure about this. Maybe Even later, till the fall or winter, we can only freely move between mainland China and Hong Kong. Do you know any of your friends who went through quarantine in mainland China? Did you learn anything from them?
Yes, some of my former colleagues from an insurance company, most of them went back to mainland China because there is nothing to do in Hong Kong. One of them, who is my cat's former owner, it's hard for them to take their pet back to mainland China due to the pandemic. So they told me they will spend like 20,000 for one cat in illegal way because they had two cats. So they chose to take one and left this one behind.
Because there's no legal way to take them back.
They told me that there is legal way, but the legal way will cost more. I think the illegal way is quite dangerous. And I don't think my cat can survive this because their cat, when it arrived Shenzhen, and it got very, very sick and hospitalized for a long time. So I think it's also hard for animals.
Yeah. Now I feel lucky as a human being. Yeah. So do you think the pandemic changed people's opinions about mainland China? Because people see good things about China, but also see bad things about mainland China, right? The good things about the pandemic has been in very good control in mainland China. But the bad thing is also about the control, right? Because mainland China takes quite extreme measures to control the pandemic. So do you think you and your friends in Hong Kong, they changed their opinions towards mainland China?
I think it's quite interesting because Facebook showed me the post I wrote last year and this time.
So it reminds you of what you wrote last year.
Yes, I remember that last time this year we were so angry about the Chinese government and we think they hide the truth and made the pandemic happened and spread all over the world. Most of people in mainland China, I think they are also very angry. And they had a new opinion about their government. Some of them start to question about the government. But this year, I think the anger was just gone. People in mainland China, they are so proud of our pandemic control. They are so proud of our government because by seeing other countries suffering, by seeing other countries not able to control the pandemic. So I think people in mainland China now, I think most of them have forget the pain, forget who to blame in this pandemic.
Yes.
Also, some friends in Hong Kong, they envy the people in mainland China because
They can travel.
They can travel and they don't need to wear a mask. So I think people's opinion changed a lot during this year.
But in some cases, people still question the government. For example, recently there was outbreak in Hebei, right? And then some people traveling between Hebei and Beijing, they were quite frustrated because the government in Beijing just forbids everyone from Hebei to enter Beijing, right? Right. Even if they are from low risk areas in Hebei. So for many of people in Hebei, they felt discriminated. So in those cases, people still question the government. But I think that overall, people has been very optimistic and very positive towards government now.
Yes, true. And I also know some people in Tonghua. Tonghua is a place in the north.
In northeast China, yeah.
Yes, the pandemic explode again and the people are trapped in home and there is nothing to eat. But you can hardly find the information in the internet.
Yeah.
So I think people in mainland China some of people are still suffering from this, but their voices cannot heard by others. But what we can see in internet is some positive opinions, positive comments.
What about Dominic? What about Hong Kong people's opinion toward mainland China?
I think, in some sense, Hong Kong, they would also envy China because they have tried to really manage the lowering the cases. So unlike Hong Kong, we still get like 20, like 15 cases a day, but in China it's much more controllable now. And they're free to travel around without masks. So in fact, I think the mainland Chinese people are fearful that Hong Kong people will come to their place. Yeah.
So what about your personal plans? Because we started our first recording talking about the plans about migrating to Canada. So at what point would you make the next steps of your immigration?
We don't think we will go to Canada in a short time because the pandemic is so serious in that place. So I applied master program in Chinese University of Hong Kong and got an offer. So I may go to Canada after I finish it. Yes, it takes 2 years.
Okay.
So maybe at least we will spend our time in Hong Kong for these 2 years until I got a degree. And we have not decided the next step, but we know we will go to Canada ultimately, but we just don't know when. Yes.
Does this delay affect your immigration status to Canada?
Yes, because I've got my PR, permanent residency, and it lasts for 5 years. So it will expire if I don't go to Canada. But I can apply again because Dominic already have the passport, have the citizenship. So yes,
it's not a big problem for you.
It's not a big problem for us. Yes, but we know some of our friends, they still immigrate during the pandemic. I know there are a lot of this kind of people in Hong Kong, but maybe we will just postpone our plan.
Okay, yeah. But as your friend, I feel happy that you will stay in Hong Kong for at least 2 more years, right? We have more opportunity to hang out.
Yes.
So last question about the political threat, especially about the national security law. But for you and also your clients, do you think the pandemic or the change in recent politics as a bigger threat to your life in Hong Kong?
I think pandemic will over in a short period of time, maybe 1 year, 2 years, but the damage of the Hong Kong's freedom will last like, I don't know, like maybe forever, but I'm sure it's not short time thing.
Yeah, there's no vaccine for that.
Yes, there is no vaccine for that. So actually most of my friends, they have the plan to leave Hong Kong. Not because of the pandemic. They will go to the place where the pandemic is much more serious, but they just leave because of the politics, the national security law.
Dominic, do you want to add anything on this?
Yeah, well, definitely because of the new national security law, like because it's so vague, so unclear, people are much more conscious of what they're seeing, what they're posting online. And definitely we're seeing, even my friends and my colleagues, we're seeing many of them are trying to immigrate. We have an immigration wave in our company. So especially those families, young families with children, they don't want their children to be brought up in this atmosphere. So definitely, I think this is quite a very deep-rooted, permanent effect in Hong Kong and how we live. So it's very unclear, like what the future holds for us. Yeah.
Guess that's why you still decide to continue your immigration to Canada, right? You still believe that ultimately you will go to Canada.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for talking with us again, and wish you and your cat all the best. And maybe we will try to find time to hang out. This was episode 6 of the 3rd season of Record of Change, featuring our guests Wenni and Dominic in Hong Kong. If you like this episode or Record of Change in general, we would love to hear your feedback, and even more so if you would like to share with your networks. Follow us on your favorite podcast provider or on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or our website recordofchange.com. If you would like to support independent podcasts, we would be honored to get your support to our efforts bringing you unique stories from across the world through being a Patreon supporter. For those supporting us on Patreon, you will have unique opportunities and access, getting early access to episodes, bonus behind-the-scenes insights of the Record of Change team, and an opportunity to pitch questions for our interviewees alongside us. Even the smallest level of support can be a great boost as we strive to document the impact of COVID-19 on communities throughout the world. This podcast is implemented with and by members of the Bosch Alumni Network. Thank you for listening.